Hello, Year 6. Miss Owen here for another topic session. Hope you're all doing well and I hope you're all enjoying this topic. Obviously, it would have been so much more enjoyable if we'd been in school doing this with our ancient Egyptian day and things like that, but we're making the best of it. So, we're on to lesson 6, believe it or not, and today we're looking at the pyramids. So if you want to go ahead and write your title in now. Our learning powers for today, really important, these ones today, are listening and absorption. You're going to be watching a series of different videos that you would have been sent the links today, but also I'll show them to you on this smart. Um, but they're really important that you watch them, otherwise this session won't work for you. Okay, so and they're vital for you to watch them so you can actually do the activity at the end of the lesson. So without further ado, we will carry on. We're looking at the pyramids. Let's do a bit of total recall. Let's do 3 lessons ago. Why was the Nile so important and still important to Egypt? So there were several different reasons why we could consider the Nile important, but there was one in particular that we looked at more so than the rest. But maybe come up with a couple of different roles the River Nile had within ancient Egyptian times. Lesson 2 lessons ago, sorry, I should say. Name a job that men would do in ancient Egypt. So name some of the jobs that they could do. And 1 lesson ago, what job title was given to those who wrote hieroglyphics? Okay, so 3 lessons ago, importance of the Nile. Well, main reason probably growing those crops, using the water from the Nile to grow the crops. Transport through Egypt, connecting all those cities and villages together, barrier for invasion, using water for cooking and washing, the fish that would have been in the rivers for eating, all those kinds of things. And I suppose, why is it still important in Egypt today? Well, a lot of those reasons are still relevant, aren't they? Maybe not so much the barriers for invasion, but some of them are still really vital. Name a job that men would do in ancient Egypt. Well, you could have had a potter, you could have had a scribe, a woodworker, a carpenter, I should say, a metal worker, a farmer, a priest, a pharaoh, if they were born into the royal family, a vizier, the advisor, all those kinds of things. A nobleman, I suppose that's not necessarily classed as a job, but it is a role that they could have had. And what job title was given to those who wrote hieroglyphics? It was the scribe. And we know now as well that they were very important within ancient Egypt. Okay, you're going to be exposed to a lot of vocabulary today, but these are sort of just the key ones that we're going to look at for the next couple of slides. So let's have a little look. So we've got the Pyramid of Khufu, also known as the Great Pyramid, the Pyramids of Giza. That's what we're going to be looking at today. And the first pyramids that resembled the shape we associate pyramids with now, they were sort of the first true pyramids. The ones that came before them, and we're going to look at a couple of those in a second, weren't necessarily the classic shape that we think of when we think of a pyramid now. We've got a felucca, which is the Egyptian boats that were used to transport the large amounts of stone to the pyramid sites. Archaeologists, people who dig up historical sites to uncover more about those who once lived there. And excavated is to dig carefully and methodically. Excavating is not when you just dig randomly and hope that you find something. It's a systematic approach that archaeologists use when they're digging historical sites. So that's just some really key vocab for you. Okay. So when we're thinking about the pyramids, we have to understand exactly what they were used for, and why they were built. So Egypt's pyramids served as tombs for her dead kings. So the focus of the complex of a complex of ritual buildings, the pyramid was the magical powerhouse where the mummified pharaoh would attain eternal life. So that is where a pharaoh, the royal line of Egypt, would be laid to rest, and it was a way in which that pharaoh could access the heavens, essentially, very much linked to their religious understanding and their religious views, and that's why they were built. And actually, when a new pharaoh took reign in Egypt, they would start work on their pyramid pretty much straight away, because it would take so long for them to be built. And you couldn't wait until that pharaoh died, because it took nearly 20 years to build a pyramid, essentially. So as soon as a pharaoh took reign, they would start building their pyramid where they would be laid to rest, because it probably would be finished around about the time they might die, or a little bit before that, maybe. Um, so the first pyramid was the Step Pyramid, so Djoser's Step Pyramid, built not long after Egypt became a unified land in approximately 3000 BC. So I talked about unification a couple of sessions ago. Basically, Egypt used to be broken up into several different kingdoms, but around 3000 BC, Egypt became just one kingdom, one sort of land, essentially, with one pharaoh. And the Great Pyramid of Khufu at Giza, the Great Pyramids of Giza, which is what we're going to look at today, was raised a century later. So 100 years later is when these pyramids came about. And there was quite an advancement from how they started burying their dead to how they ended burying their dead. Some say the race for the sky began with the Egyptians, as they tried to build the biggest and the best pyramid for whichever king they were honouring. It was an honour to build a pyramid for a pharaoh, because they were the highest person in Egypt. People believed that they would become gods. So by building them a grand pyramid, they were honouring their gods, essentially. They succeeded in holding the title for the tallest structure in the world for a whopping 1,500 years. So for 1,500 years, the pyramids were the tallest buildings in the world, which is quite extraordinary, really. Okay, so I can see that this has become really, really small, but what I wanted to do is sort of show you the evolution of the pyramids, and also the evolution of how they buried their dead. So when Egypt, this ancient Egypt civilization first started, they would bury them in their dead in pit graves. And mummification, which became part of their burial ritual, actually just happened naturally because of the heat coming from the ground. But they were actually just buried in pits, essentially. And it started to evolve after that. So then they went to something known as a mastaba tomb, which were sort of burial chambers that were cut deeper into the bedrock, so deeper into the ground. They were lined with wood, and it was surrounded by a rectangular mud brick building, essentially, this tomb that they would lie in. So already we can start to see that actually they're moving from low in ground to something that's of a higher structure, a bit more advanced. Then we've got the first sort of step pyramid, the first sort of structure that resembles the style of a pyramid as we know now. So Djoser's pyramid has a stepped appearance. It's usually interpreted as a symbolic mound of creation, but can also be read as a stairway to heaven. That's kind of where this stepped figure comes from. It's like a stairway. It's like a ladders up to heaven, essentially. Then we move on to the Medium Pyramid, which was for King Snurrefu. He was the first king of the fourth dynasty. We've talked about dynasties before. And it's the first sort of straight edged pyramid, and it's sort of stood about 95 meters high. So we're starting to get higher and higher as we go. Then we've got the bent pyramid, which again was also built by Sneferu, but it's more commonly known as the bent pyramid. Something went wrong when they were building it. Calculations weren't done as exact as they could have been, and unfortunately part of the pyramid started collapsing on itself. And then we've got the Great Pyramid, the Pyramid of Khufu, the Pyramids of Giza. These are the ones that we're going to really focus on for this session. But they were they're sort of known as the true pyramid style, as what we know as now. It's standing at about 146 meters high. It's the tallest pyramid, and roughly the ground level of the pyramid can hold the Houses of Parliament and St Paul's Cathedral in it with room to spare. That's how big it is. It's massive. Um, and that was sort of the last kind of pyramid that was actually built. Um, then we've got Khufu's son, so Khufu was the man who built the pyramids, but his son actually built his pyramid next to his father's, but it's much smaller. What he was more known for was the Sphinx statue, which you can see in the image, and it's part god, part animal, and the actual face of it is 22 times the life-size image of his face. It's huge. And then, like I said, that was kind of like the last sort of pyramids that were built by Khufu and his son. After that, kings were buried in the Valley of the Kings rather than in their own pyramid. But they would have these sort of pyramid-style openings to their tombs, to sort of keep in time with the pyramids. But they were sort of buried in secret in the Valley of the Kings. And the reason for that is because people would try and go into the tombs, into the pyramids, and steal from the kings that lay there. So they started to bury them in secret after that. So that's sort of just the evolution of the pyramids, how they started from pit graves all the way up to sort of the Valley of the Kings, and how they became what they were. And the thing is, you can see how they learned from their mistakes, or it was a bit of a trial and error kind of system. They learned how to build these things better and better each time. Okay, so like I said, these videos now are really essential. So you're going to go and stop this video, pause it for now. You're going to go back to the links that you were sent today, because all of these are on there, and you're going to watch them in the correct order. You have to watch them in the correct order, otherwise you're going to get really, really confused. And these show the construction of the Great Pyramid from the perspective of one of the slaves. So a man that was taken from his village all the way up to the very end of when the pyramid was built. And you're going to watch them and sort of take notes. I would maybe do it on a scrap piece of paper or in your topic books. That's absolutely fine. It's completely up to you. But sort of take notes on the process of the building of the pyramid. What tools did they use? How did they start? You know, sort of what was the chronological order of building the pyramids? How did they get the stone from one place to another? Like I said, what tools they used. Try and pick out the important information about how the pyramids were built. All right. And this is where your learning powers are really important, because it's listening to what's being said to you, but also absorbing the important information. Okay, so go ahead, pause this video and go and watch those clips for me now. Okay, so hopefully you've watched all those clips now, and hopefully you've got a better understanding of how the pyramid, or the Great Pyramid, was built. Our higher order question, I suppose, links to our absorption learning power. Could you retell the important parts of the construction of the pyramid using some of this key vocabulary? So what I've done is I watched those clips as well, and I picked out the important information. And then now this is known as a vocabulary bullseye grid. Bits in the red are important, but not necessarily as important as bits in the orange. And then there's the bits in the yellow as well. So as we narrow down into the yellow, the vocabulary gets more and more technical and a bit more specific. So could you use this vocabulary, and the harder the better, to describe how the pyramids were built? Maybe tell somebody at home, maybe just say it to yourself. It's absolutely fine. Okay, so this leads me on to what you guys are going to do now. So essentially, you're going to be creating storyboards, almost like a comic strip, for the construction of the pyramids. So bronze, you're just going to be concentrating on drawing pictures to show the different points, or the different parts of the construction. Now, it might be worth all of you going through your notes and thinking, right, what are the most important steps here for making the pyramid? You could go back and have a little look at the clips as well. Break it down into maybe 6 or 8 really important parts to make the pyramid. And bronze, you're just going to concentrate on drawing pictures. Silver, you're going to create a storyboard that includes detailed descriptions of the construction of the pyramid. So a bit like this storyboard down here, you draw the picture and then tell me what's going on in that picture underneath. And then gold, you're going to be using subject-specific vocabulary within those descriptions. So going back to our vocabulary bullseye, you're going to be using some of this really technical vocabulary within your descriptions down the bottom. Okay? So, like I said, now maybe go back, think about what are the main sort of 6 to 8 important parts of the construction of the Great Pyramid. I would suggest maybe the quarry would be one of the important parts that you need to include. How they were pulling the stone up through on the pyramids, all that kind of stuff. So pick out what you think is the main part and draw out your storyboard. Now, there's different ways that you could do this. You could do it on the computer if you wanted to. I'm going to be sending out this as well to you, which is a storyboard template. If you wanted to use that, then you can. You could draw it out in your topic books, your storyboard. Or if you've got a plain piece of paper, fold it up into 6 or 8 equal sections and use that. Be creative about how you're going to create the storyboard. Could be that you even use the computer and that you create maybe like a PowerPoint version of the storyboard. Completely up to you. Be imaginative, be creative. Okay, but the important part is that you're recognizing the steps that it took to build the pyramid, but also the vocabulary that went along with it. Okay, happy with that? Right. Hope you've enjoyed. I look forward to seeing your storyboards, and I'll see you again for another topic session soon. Bye.